Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. Welcome to our latest session on the transition to live online training. My name is Ben Holliday. I'm a customer success manager here at Arlo for the greater APAC region. In our last webinar session, we put out a poll asking the audience to let us know which webinar content they would most like us to deliver next. The overwhelming response was that they'd like for us to put together a panel of current Arlo customers who have already navigated these changes from face-to-face to live online webinars, and to discuss the transition, the challenges, and offer some advice and insights to others looking to endeavor in that same transition. So I'm joined today by a couple of Arlo customers, Maggie Sanding from IRI in Australia, Anne Cave from Selwyn Community Education in New Zealand, and Bruce Cooper from Springhouse in the United States. We'll start with Anne Cave, if you wouldn't mind giving us a bit of an introduction around Selwyn Community Education, the services that you provide, and a little bit of background about yourself. That'd be fantastic. Thanks, Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm the Director of Selwyn Community Education based in Auckland and run through Selwyn College. We have about 6,000 participants coming through doing languages and cooking. So there's a lot of hands-on. There's also English classes as well. So we were faced with a situation when the New Zealand government locked down communities. We had 2 weeks of classes left, face-to-face classes left to run. So we had to make a quick decision as to how we were going to fulfill the needs of those people that had signed up. So we were really fortunate because a lot of our tutors went ahead themselves and researched Zoom classes, and they offered online classes to fulfill the needs of the people that had already signed up and paid. So we're now in a situation where we're looking at where we go from here. At this stage, with New Zealand being locked down, we're not able to offer face-to-face classes. So we are at a point of transitioning, looking at which classes would be suitable to be delivered face-to-face, which classes may be partial face-to-face and partial online classes. So that's where we are at the moment. We're talking to Arlo about ways that we can integrate our booking system with the various options that we might decide to run with.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Anne. Maggie, you want to go ahead and provide some context?
Sure, thank you. And welcome everyone. It's really great to see so many people joining us today. And ultimately, it's a real hot topic for everyone in how we can adapt and engage our learners through this online delivery. A little bit of an introduction for myself and the company that I work with, being IRI. So I'm a Solutions Training and Adoption Manager at IRI currently. I've been with the business just over 3 years. Prior to that, my entire experience of more than 10 years sits across the government sector. And in that time, I was able to I've had the opportunity to set up training functions from scratch. I've created e-learning frameworks and strategies around how businesses can adapt and, I guess, embed new technology. So technology is where I really sit really comfortably. And I've also been able to create some cross-department groups where we've been able to share and grow our e-learning understanding and almost look at best practice and what that looks like across departments. IRI, if we focus on IRI and what we do currently at IRI, for context, IRI, if you haven't heard of us before, we're a leader in providing powerful market and shopper information to retailers and manufacturers. And we service for bespoke channels, being your grocery sector, petrol and convenience, liquor and healthcare. And we provide our clients with data, which they access through our in-house built solutions, and that gives them the opportunity to understand their business drivers and identify opportunities of growth across the retailers that they service. Our solution training programs are focused on maximising our clients' value in the use of their data and ultimately their technology investment. But prior to joining IRI, we really only delivered face-to-face as the only medium. And that is very much the preferred delivery medium across our client base. Since joining RI, as I mentioned, over 3 years ago now, we've been able to expand this and provide some variation in the delivery mediums, and I'm very passionate about that. And to date, we now offer a really comprehensive program of self-paced learning, videos, we do recorded webinars, which we push out. We provide e-learning, and we have a separate e-learning platform that sits outside of Arlo. We issue learning aids, and ultimately, as one of the hot topics today, we provide live virtual training, and we've been able to adapt that on the back of some of the existing processes that we have. I might stop there. I'm sure we'll be able to contribute through some of the further pieces on how we've been able to move to online. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that thorough introduction there, Maggie, and all the context. Bruce, coming live to us from poolside there in Pennsylvania. Would you mind giving us a little bit of context around what Springhouse does and what you do for the business?
Absolutely. Springhouse is a education-based training and consulting business. This past year was our 30th anniversary, so we've been in business for quite some time. Primarily focused around the Microsoft product technologies. I personally have been with Springhouse for about 24 years in various roles. Currently, I am the CEO of Springhouse. What we do in our pitch is basically to get customers more productive with the technology tools that they already have, both through training and consulting. And with the virus in the US, it's been about 3 weeks since we've been sort of in lockdown. One of the advantages that we did have is that we had already offered both in-person classes as well as virtual classes. We're part of a consortium that's spread across the US, and so we offer each of our other partners classes virtually, since we're spread across the whole US. So when we were faced with the circumstances, we were fairly easily able to transition everyone from our in-person training to our live online training. And in fact, had a couple of customers who weren't used to working in a distributed work environment, and actually had reached out to us and said, hey, can you help us with some training around some of the tools that are available to us? And so in a nutshell, that's what Springhouse is, and how we do. And I think we'll get into some further details as we go along.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bruce. So as you guys can see, and for those of you that are just joining us, we've got Anne, Maggie, and Bruce from their respective businesses, and as they've just alluded to from representing kind of the broad spectrum of industry within the training provider service sector. Again, I'm Ben Holiday. I think I've probably spoken with a lot of you folks that have hopped on to walk through this panel discussion today. I'm the Greater APAC Region Customer Success Manager. And from this point, let's go ahead and start diving into kind of the nitty gritty here. So Bruce and Maggie, you guys kind of high level alluded to this, and you as well, but I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more detail of what has the immediate impact of COVID presented to you and your business. What have you guys seen from a business standpoint in terms of the immediate effects?
Well, I think for us it was a very abrupt change. We are we deliver face to face, and that's who we are, and that's what we pride ourselves on. So suddenly it was this abrupt change in having to look at how we were going to move ahead from here. So I think for me, the lesson that I have taken away from it is that it has been very much led by our tutors, who have all progressed with their own learning. I felt it was really important to get them on board, and the way they got on board was by setting up a WhatsApp group, talking about what they'd done, talking about the successes that they'd had. And so with that, the momentum started and everybody started thinking, well, if so-and-so can do it online, I can as well. So it was very much driven for us by our tutors.
Yeah, that's awesome, and you raise a very good point there. And obviously, this has a tremendous impact for the clients of our respective businesses, but also on the administrative side of the business. It's definitely thrown a bit of a wrench into how the business at large continues to operate, and we've been forced to iterate. And most folks are working from home, so channeling resources like WhatsApp and that sort of stuff to sort of streamline communications and logistics for as much of a business as usual operation has, that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Maggie or Bruce?
For us, whilst we had quite a range of courses that we deliver both virtually and face-to-face, the majority of the courses were face-to-face. And as everybody else was, faced with the same challenges in identifying, reviewing our course, almost like the course state. What is the priority? Which courses do we need to adapt first, second, third, which based on the demand across our client base, and what does that look like? I guess for us, it's a matter of sort of reviewing the objectives of each course and identifying what content is critical and how that will be delivered through virtual training. So it was a matter of, really understanding what were the key messages and the core messages that we needed to deliver to our clients. And we then focused on those in how we, scoped out the learning plans for virtual delivery. I had to put some communication out to the market around the transition and the impact that coronavirus has had for us broadly and across our stakeholders, and how we were adapting our training model to service to service our clients. And along that, fortunately or unfortunately for us, we had just moved to a new webinar platform. So in the mix of all of that, we had to also spend some time to really adopt this new platform that was part of our plan all the way, in terms of shifting to. It just wasn't the perfect timing to adopt a new piece of technology amidst all of that. But yeah, certainly lots of learnings along the way. And the real driver for us was just taking stock, identifying what the priority is, communicating, and then, taking steps to achieve that broadly. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I think, again, you raise a really good point, and something we'll dive into a little bit later is transitioning the experience from, the traditional face-to-face platform of content delivery and the engagement that's available as a result of that. How do we transition that into, the virtual environment? And I'm glad you mentioned that. We'll touch base on that a little bit later in the program. Before we do, Bruce, how's Springhouse faring, and what was the impact that you guys faced?
So because we are part of this group that's spread geographically across the U.S., our trainers were very comfortable with the online tools. A good portion of our classes had both an in-person or a virtual option, depending on the student's preferences. We do have some students that are in some programs with us, even that are spread throughout the state of Pennsylvania here in the U.S. And so the trainers didn't really have to do much. I would say that one of the things that was the biggest adjustment was for our students and our learners. 80% of our learners' preference was, in person. And so when that was taken away, they were the ones who adapted. And I would say for the most part, almost every one of them has accepted it and embraced it and actually enjoyed it. We've gotten some very good feedback from students that they're enjoying the ability to take it from home and to increase their productivity while they're somewhat unable to do normal work tasks. That's been a positive, and we've had very few people who really did not adopt or weren't willing to embrace an online learning model. So we've had a handful of students who have postponed classes. For the most part, you know, the business that we've had has been, we've been able to execute at a very high level. I think one of the things that concerns us as a business moving forward is the number of new participants has definitely been down, and at what point in time will their mentality change to taking advantage of the downtime as opposed to just waiting until the restrictions might be lifted, and none of us know when that would be. So I think from a delivery standpoint, we've been fortunate that we've been able to continue to deliver classes. The demand for new classes is not there yet, and you know, that's concerning to our business.
Sure. Yeah. And again, you raise a couple of key aspects there to be taken into consideration as far as, you know, the marketing and sort of pricing to how do you draw the visibility to this and entice customers to see that you are able to offer a compelling and engaging and a high quality level of training comparable to what would be available in the classroom. And we'll touch on that here in just a couple of moments. As far as kind of immediate actions went, obviously the globe kind of went into overnight lockdown is what it felt like. So as business owners and as training providers, you know, for all the immediately scheduled face-to-face courses, obviously there was a bit of iterating and kind of fast action to shift some of that stuff to live online wherever possible. So I'm curious, as far as your experiences, Bruce, Ann, and Maggie, went with either transferring and rescheduling these face-to-face courses in the live online capacity. Were you able to do that, and were the registrants pretty responsive? And overall, kind of how was the experience in adjusting from the traditional face-to-face to live online through Arlo?
We are waiting for the next announcement, which is going to come on the 20th, in terms of what level of social isolation people need to maintain. So in the meantime, we haven't sent it, it's just about ready to go, a newsletter to all people who have enrolled or have attended a class in the past. And in that newsletter, we are including some short video links to introduce them to some of the tutors, for some of the tutors to talk to them about their classes. We're explaining that at this stage we are unable to say which classes will be online, which will be face-to-face, and what we're doing, but we will be letting them know once the announcement is made on the 20th. But we're actually giving them a little bit of a taste of how easy it would be to transition to an online class. So just a little bit of a snippet for various classes about what you'd need to do if your class does go online. Sure.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anne. Maggie and Bruce, any insight there?
For us, if I guess approach the piece first from a communication standpoint and how we were able to adapt. So we use Arlo for everything in terms of being able to advertise, being able to manage registrations, wait lists, communication that gets triggered. So we use a lot of the capability that Arlo offers to support and reduce some of the admin components of any training function. And I guess one of the positive things there is that we were able to, when we did identify, you know, this is a time that we need to postpone our face-to-face delivery, we were able to identify the courses based on the way they're grouped within the Arlo platform. We were able to quickly remove them, unpublish them from our website, so there was no confusion for our clients whether something is available or not, despite having issued separate communication to those clients. And if we had anyone who was currently registered across any face-to-face course, we were able to again identify who those registrants are and then target them as a group with some targeted communication around that. Yeah, I guess once we did release our live virtual training, options within our platform. One of the key considerations for us as a team, and I guess for anyone out there, obviously when you do deliver face-to-face, you're very much aware of the environment. You bring people in, you know how the setup is, you know what resources you have available, you know how things work. With virtual delivery, I guess one of the considerations and some of the content that we've been able to collate since, you know, the last 3 weeks now or so, if I'm right there, is understanding what are some of those virtual training considerations. So we can no longer, you know, we don't have control of the environment. So what is it that we can assist our clients and participants with? So we've issued communication around what best practice looks like, and this, you know, whether you have a single monitor or 2 monitors for technical training, we swap between screens. If you don't have 2 monitors, what can you do to adapt and get the most out of the session? Ultimately, similar to today, internet bandwidth is another key component. So if your internet session drops out, what can we support and make available to you? And that's partly why by default we record all of our webinars or all of the virtual training that we do deliver. So we always say, don't worry, if you do get cut out, we can either welcome you to another session or we can issue you with a recording. Audio, another key contributor here. We always have backup audio, you know, details available if your computer audio or speakers don't work, and we publicly show that information within the virtual training. And, you know, we've got some FAQs around that and to be able to support our clients. But yeah, there's certainly elements that are outside of your control, but I guess we try to identify what those are and work through some strategies in how you can adapt and support people remotely. That's probably been the key adjustment. And I guess give online a go. This is the perfect time. We're all in it together. We're all facing the same challenges, and people tend to be quite understanding and I guess, you know, willing to work with those, you know, nuances of what we have to do as a community, you know, locally and globally. So I think this is the best time to give online a go if you haven't yet. Thanks.
Yeah, that's some really wonderful insight there, Maggie. I completely agree. And I think we've largely seen a lot of the Arlo client base kind of adopt that mentality as well. Just over the past couple of weeks, we've seen spikes in online related activity, registrations, event scheduling, kind of spiked 200, 300, 400, 500% in you know, since the lockdown has kind of hit home. And you do raise a couple of questions to take into consideration as this transition is kind of taking place, as far as the technical considerations, audio, video. How do we support our students to have that high quality level of a learning experience through the virtual classroom? And you do bring up something around, you know, which classes do we transition from face-to-face to live online? And as soon as we get a response here from Bruce, I'd love to kind of circle back to that. So thanks for that, Maggie. Bruce?
So the way that we were actually set up with the Arlo platform is that we offered our students the option to register for an in-person event or a separate virtual event. And so the transition from not being able to provide in-person was real easy. We were able to very quickly communicate with all the registered participants, switch them from the in-person to the virtual delivery, provided them with a different set of details that was relevant to a live virtual versus in-person. And you know, the management of that was, you know, so much more quickly accomplished with the Arlo platform than it would have been in any other manual process or anything else that we've ever used in the past, and you know, in our 30-year history. I would also say that one of the things that I value as you know, being one of the leaders of the organization is the availability. The cloud-based solutions my accounting software, my office software, Arlo, everything is available on the cloud, no matter where you are. Just the other night here in Pennsylvania, we had some very severe thunderstorms. Power was out at the office, and so the whole transition to cloud-based solutions, including Arlo for training management, has been one of the best decisions that I ever made. And if it were up to me, I would have hardly any equipment in any facility that we run, and have it all cloud-based. And so that was definitely, I have my operations staff handling students who are postponing or canceling or switching to virtual sessions, and it's so much more automated and simple than it used to be in the past. And for that, we're very thankful.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. And you're absolutely right in that presenting all of our business from the cloud perspective, it makes it so much easier to iterate, and obviously more equipment that you rely upon. There's additional logistics that are getting required as a result of that. So thanks for that insight there, Bruce. So I'm curious, you guys, just to take a quick pivot into communicating for future schedulings of these online and virtual classroom settings. How have you guys gone about promoting the shift within your respective businesses, whether that was through announcements via email or adjustments on your web pages, or creation of new pages, advertising these live online sessions?
I think for us, it's going to be the newsletter, which will be going out in the next couple of days, and we will have information on the website as well.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. Maggie?
We use our Arlo website to primarily advertise any type of course offering. We've added some new categories in there, so our clients are able to easily go into relevant areas, so webinars, e-learning, self-paced. We've removed any reference to public face-to-face training, so there's clarity there. We have a separate marketing team as well, which we provide information to, and they have been wonderful in supporting us broadly with the communication that we issue to our clients around training and what's available and how. Obviously, we create the content, but they really finesse and add our branding to it. And all of our clients are supported through an account team, and they have their own individual account contacts. So we use those account teams to further drive the availability and what's available when, how, and through what means. So it's almost like 3 different channels that we use. So we also have targeted communication coming out of the training function directly to existing clients. So marketing, the Arlo website, as well as the account team is where we tend to issue all of our comms currently.
Very good, thanks.
And we've switched up our website, and I know that you guys were showing it a little bit earlier, and sort of what we feature in our Prime section on our website has shifted. We were doing some other promotions, and so we're working hard through our marketing team and our account management team, our sales team, to get the message out that we're still providing services, that we're still able to provide training, and so that's been the biggest thing. I wouldn't say that we've done a whole lot of discounting in order to try and attract customers. The fact that there are a lot of other training organizations that don't have the same capabilities that we do as sort of set us aside. And I've had a handful of customers that are coming to us, and like I said earlier, and hey, can you help us get more productive with the circumstances, and get our team trained, And I know next week we have several added sessions for some Microsoft Teams and different tools that some of our customers are using.
Yeah, that's great. And I think all of you have kind of alluded to where I want to navigate this conversation to next. I'm really curious, when you guys are kind of considering which courses face-to-face are we going to be transitioning, how do you ultimately come to that determination? Where do you, we've talked about kind of taking this opportunity to step back and reflect and refine content for that virtual classroom. But I think stepping a step further backwards and kind of looking at the higher level of each respective course and the respective content to be delivered, how do you all ultimately make that determination whether or not this is a course that would be appropriate for a virtual classroom?
I think it's going to be pretty well customer driven up to a point. Obviously for us, majority of our classes are language classes, we've got history classes, we've got travel classes. They will be really easy to transition to. For instance, we've got a class which is called Understanding India, and the tutor for that particular course is really excited about the fact that he can visually take people to India and talk to them and talk them through the places they might be going to see. And there are some that stand out as being really easy to transition to. There are others like the watercolor classes, the oil painting classes that will be good, but we need to give quite a lot of thought as to how we make them better than a lot of the free ones that are out there.
Yeah, great. And I think you again raise a very compelling point there, Anne, and something always to take into consideration for those traditional face-to-face courses that it's compulsory that we have, or quote unquote compulsory that we have that face-to-face in-person element. Something like traditionally we would think maybe watercoloring would absolutely have that requirement. Obviously we need to take a step back and possibly get a little creative with that content delivery, and how can we continue to offer these sorts of services through the virtual classroom. So thanks for that, Anne. Maggie, I know that you mentioned that this is something that you guys are in the process of doing and have already implemented for a number of courses. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind taking us through your thought process there.
Yes, definitely. Similar to Anne, I'm sure to others as well, ultimately the priority sits with that customer driven input, and where, what's core and what is the, what I'm trying to say, where is the key drivers for us? So which course delivers the most bang for our buck, and what do we need to prioritize to be able to get that off the ground and virtually available? For us, we're probably a little bit different to some of the soft skills training. We tend to require all of our trainings to have an element of face-to-face, and ultimately to be able to practice the skills and application of those skills across the platform. So all of our courses can, and we're looking at moving those to online. I guess part of the decision on which one to address first, again, comes to the demand and the customer input there, and what's urgent, what do we need to prioritize based on the demand there. But it's been a matter of seeing what we currently have available. So again, if there are any training providers out there who have components of their courses currently delivered online, well, for example, we have one of our courses is on a software called Temple, and we do have some existing videos and some self-paced materials around that. So we haven't necessarily prioritized that to be delivered immediately through virtual training. Instead, we've focused our priority across courses that had some very limited virtual deliverables sitting behind them. And for us, that's currently been on a different platform, which is called Unify. And we've then broken that content. So then we said, okay, well, this is the priority. Then what do we need to do to this content to make it virtually feasible? So the key components for us has been time bound. We know that we can't sit on a computer and be active for a full day, for half a day, even 2 hours is too long. So how do we break up that content? And again, coming back to the point that I made earlier on, identifying what is the core, what are the core things, the core learnings you want people to take away. And then we've sort of broken that up and identified what can we support through videos, learning aids, pre-work, post-work, and then what do we deliver in a time bound? Currently we're sitting at 90 minutes. We're looking at reducing that to 60. And even within that 60 or 90 minutes, we're looking at how we can regularly engage with our learners to keep them interactive and I guess be able to have that interaction virtually as you would in a classroom setting face to face.
Yeah, that's awesome, Maggie, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So we've seen some questions from the attendees around what is kind of the ideal live online time frame. Is that every 45 minutes we provide a break, every 60 minutes? And then as far as within those content delivery timeframes, what's the most effective way to really ramp up engagement? How do you create that sense of involvement that is obviously lacking from shifting from in classroom to virtual classroom? So we'll circle back to that here in a second. I'd love to hear your thoughts here as well, Bruce.
Sure. I guess with our classes and our content I would classify into two separate areas. Our adult learning model with technology tools really revolves around an explanation, a demonstration, and then a hands-on exercise for students. And that iteration and that process, at least with a tool, seems to keep the students active and engaged because they're still doing things hands-on. And I would say that, as both Ann and Maggie said earlier, it's customer driven. If a customer wants to shorten the duration, one of the first things that they ask us to take out is some of the hands-on exercises. But then we have other classes, which I would say are more, framework or methodology training. And those are the ones where, they're typically multi-day and they're, a longer duration. And so, those are the ones that we've tried to shift from, either a 2-day or 3-day class into, 4 or 6 days, half days, and we try and do, breaks every 60 minutes. So it really depends on the objective of the class. But I would say that, that's the biggest challenge that we have is that, trying to break it up and to change the what we would say is the standard duration of the class over a different duration because of the attention spans and other things that tend to affect the learners in this live online environment.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bruce. And it sounds like you and Maggie are both on kind of the same page in terms of effective timeframes. It sounds like that magic number is around 60 to 90 minutes before a break in content, or maybe it's a matter of breaking content delivery into more frequent engagements via activities, or something that the learners can do on their own to hopefully spike up that level of engagement and really drive home the learning. So I'm glad you brought that up. So let's kind of shift pace here a little bit and jump into the practice of these online learnings and shifting into the virtual classrooms. Obviously, it's not only a change in with respect to the learners' perspective, but also the trainers. I would imagine that you all have worked with a number of trainers or educators that maybe this is the first go round of presenting content through a virtual classroom. And, I think with the advent that Zoom has just kind of blown up, everybody's kind of learning along the way. So I'm curious around the trainer and educator perspective. How are you handling the trainers that haven't presented content in this fashion before? Are we using the same trainers? Are we hiring on new ones? And what about those guys that are maybe a little bit more technologically challenged than others? So how are we setting up the trainers for success essentially is what I'm after here.
I think for us, it's going to be very much, driven by them. If people don't feel comfortable doing it, and I've had 2 or 3 tutors emailed me to say we had a Zoom tutorial yesterday with one of the other tutors who's been very successful and has received really good feedback from his participants. So we had a tutorial yesterday, and 2 or 3 tutors emailed me back to say, you know, it was great, really enjoyed it, but it is not my way of teaching, and I would be, you know, basically opting out if they have to do an online course, and that's fine. So we'll jump that bridge when we get to it. It may be that those particular classes don't need to go online, but it was just interesting. Some people have taken to it and some people are excited about it, and some are thinking this is not for me.
Sure, and I think it is important to realize that, you know, I caught up with you guys yesterday, and we kind of touched base on this. It's a completely different experience, right? You know, both from the trainer and the trainee perspective, and you know, online capacity is not for everybody. But it wouldn't surprise me if we learned that there actually is a fairly significant amount of overlap between folks that are able to learn virtually versus in classroom as well. And Maggie, how have you been finding the management of trainees or trainers, excuse me, and your capacity at IRI to set the trainers up for success?
For us, so just I guess just to clarify that, you know, IRI is a global business, and the part that I represent today is around Australia and New Zealand, and we have a small team. It's a growing team, but a small team. And the way we've managed that, we certainly haven't had anyone sort of say, this is not for me. We've been lucky enough to, you know, have buy-in immediately in people wanting to learn and adopt this new way of working across some of the new staff that we've employed recently. One of the things that we did is really, and that was something that I raised earlier, is we need to be, whatever technology you use, you need to be comfortable with it. Be that Zoom, be that Adobe Connect, be that whatever other webinar software you use. So what we did is we set up an internal session across just for our team to really, you know, get a handle of how features in the webinar platform of our choice work. We tested that, we moved across being participant, presenters, organisers, whatever classification of functions you have across that webinar software. And we really spent some time to upskill ourselves and be comfortable and understand what are the optimum capabilities that our software of choice offers. Then we did what we refer to as a dry run, or we ran a session, one of our first online, well, the session that we moved to virtual delivery, we ran that in-house first and see how the content flowed, how that works, and what are some of the things we can adapt and change. And then for our account teams, who also do sometimes bespoke one-off, one-on-one sort of sessions with our clients, we already had that, but we just recirculated. We had a document on virtual training tips. And that broke it down into technology, materials, how to manage a classroom, mute everyone. We don't want that constant in and out, people interrupting. Be direct, as Ben's been doing so far, and calling people out, so you don't have people talking over themselves. So a little bit of that, you know, setting the scene for them. And then we also have a library of materials. So again, thinking about your learners. Some people want to engage and have that, you know, live interaction. Others are into the detail. So we have materials that we've collated across the webinar software that we're using that takes people through of how do I do this step by step, and they can use that on their own to continue to upskill and evolve their capability.
Cool. Thanks for that, Megan. I'm thankful that you mentioned the webinar software. It gives me a chance to quickly plug. I'm sure a lot of folks that are in the process of making this transition from face-to-face to live online are going through the motions of you know, software considerations, whether that's GoToWebinar, Adobe Connect, or Zoom. And as you all may or may not know, we do currently offer a fully fledged integration with GoToWebinar. We've got something in the works with Zoom. So definitely stay tuned. We'll definitely send up some follow-up communications in the coming days and weeks around that integration that's meant to be offered and rolled out with Zoom as well. So stay tuned there. So thanks for that plug opportunity there, Maggie. Bruce, how about trainer management at Springhouse? What does that look like?
So most of our trainers were familiar with, a blended audience, so some in person and some virtual. Switching to 100% virtual certainly has given some of them, opportunities to expand upon their skills, and also to, have some areas where we as an organization need to continue to work on. When we were chatting yesterday, one of the things that I brought up, and I think it's one of the lessons learned, is that, simplifying the message to the learners is key. And the Arlo platform, from our standpoint, really helps to do that. It doesn't remove the obstacle that most people don't read the information that they're presented with. However, the trainers, can reference back, and it's a very good tool for the trainers to say to the participants, look back at this document or this email and follow those steps step by step. And I think it just sort of heightens the trainer's need to have a very good command of the classroom. It's in person, it's relatively easy to ignore or to put someone, sort of second in queue as far as needing assistance. In a virtual environment, everybody's screaming for help at the same time, and so it certainly becomes something that the trainers need to adapt to as well. I would say that one of the things that I try and tell the training team that we have is, you're there to bring the knowledge of what you're instructing. And sometimes people get hung up on the tools, and if a student is having audio problems or video problems or something else along those lines, we, as Maggie said earlier, we really try to, I don't want to say dismiss it, but try to not focus on it, because there's circumstances where we can't do anything about it. And so the best value, while it may be great for our participants to do hands-on exercises, if for some reason they can't, they're still getting a lot of value out of the class by listening to the trainer and watching the trainer's presentation. They can go back and they can try, some of the exercises on their own offline. We do provide support after the class, and so a lot of those things are it's just more of a procedural reminder for our trainers at this point.
Yeah, very good. And I think throughout this discussion, a couple of times it's kind of come up the value of recording these sessions and these panels and classrooms for the benefits of not only our learners but also our trainers. As Bruce, you just mentioned, managing the classroom and being able to take a step back and continue to iterate on that management of the classroom. Where could I have continue to improve as a facilitator of this particular course. And then of course, the value that a recording presents to the learner, where they can go back and revisit some of those hands-on activities that, maybe they were encountering some technical issue, or, they had some questions outstanding. So providing that beyond the course support, maybe in a greater capacity than would typically be offered in a face-to-face course, I think is also really critical here. Yeah, so I appreciate all that. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So a couple of kind of high-level questions. Looking back at all of this stuff, you guys, as you guys went through the transitions yourselves and moved from in-person classroom setting to live online, what's the one kind of key piece of advice that you would give to other folks who are going through those same considerations at this point?
I guess for me, it's consultation. It's consulting with our learners and with our tutors and with other providers. And for instance, I sent an email to a provider who does a similar thing to us in Boston, because I noticed that they had very quickly got all their classes online within the last 2 weeks. And I thought, how did they do that? You know, she said, we've got 14 staff. All of them were able to, help get the classes online quickly. And I noticed that none of them were free. And I thought that was really interesting because, so many free classes out there, and this was a big decision for us. And she said, no, we've kept our class prices at exactly the same fee that they were before. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I think for me, the big learning thing has been consultation with everybody to try and find the best way forward for us.
Yeah, awesome. And something I do want to quickly touch on before we kind of dismiss the panel is maybe a high level approach to any pricing adjustments if there were any. But before we get there, hindsight being 2020, Maggie, what's your insight for the folks that are going through the transition themselves?
I'm going to share some of the learnings from a delivery point of view. And some of those, as most of us will go, oh yes, so I should have done that. And thank you for reminding me through, trial and error. But some of the things that we've really sort of, and now have embedded since is when we do run virtual training sessions, we now have someone in the team who oversees our training mailbox. So whilst I'm delivering, if people are having issues, they may go in terms of the different touch points they might come into. So we have someone overseeing our training mailbox and managing any issues that people are coming through there. We also have a help desk. So we've sent details of, how people should log in, the audio information to our help desk. So if they get a hold of our help desk, they have the information at hand. And we have trial to have a moderator. So someone who can have a look at the questions that are coming through as a separate person in the session to be able to manage what's coming, the influx of those questions, and, reduce some of the workload of the person presenting. We also do deliver, so outside of a live virtual training, we also record bespoke content and then deliver that. So one of the key learnings there, Pete, is this big thing, which is the headset, and it's got a mic. So really, really enhances the audio and also reduces some of the noise that I have, and I'm sure you have, through phones going off on emails and doorbells and things like that. So that's probably I'll leave it at that as the core things.
Yeah, the disruptions and the dogs and the kids and the neighbors and everything else. I'm glad you brought up the value in having a high quality headset there. Yeah, thanks for that insight, Maggie. How about you, Bruce? What's your one key takeaway?
Was that a jab at me because someone heard my dog barking a little while ago? Is that...
No, that was more of a self jab. I heard my dog.
No, I'm just teasing. I would say that the biggest single takeaway for us is the importance of simplified, easy to follow communication and instructions. We've been doing this, as I said, for a while with different virtual trainings, and even through this, within the last week or so, we've completely refined our outgoing messaging, just to try and make it more user friendly. It's a lot of information. We use digital courseware, so there's a component for courseware. There's the virtual meeting software. We also, a good chunk of our classes use hands-on tools, and we can't rely on students to have that set up and configured correctly. So we a lot of times provide virtual environments for them. And so there's a lot of different moving parts and pieces. And, as I said, within the last week, we've completely refined our messaging just because we're still trying to make it user-friendly and easy to follow, and to try and make sure that people get through all of it, because it is, relevant for the success of their event.
Yeah, that's great. And I think each of us, from a little bit of differing perspectives have kind of pointed to the value of making this a constantly iterative process, right? We're all learning, both presenters, administrators, facilitators, and then the learners themselves. This is probably a new experience for all stakeholders involved. So it's really critical to kind of constantly have that wheel in motion in terms of looking to improve and to constantly evolve to presenting as high quality of a training session as possible. Last question for you guys, I think we'll probably have time for is your approach to pricing. Have you all passed on any concessions to learners in terms of adjusted pricing? If so, why? If not, why not? Yeah, I'll leave that up to you guys.
Yeah, I might pass on that one because we are still at the point of consideration.
Sure, thanks, Anne.
For us, we haven't made any changes to our pricing. The way we price, training is a component of an overall contract that our clients, have with us, and it's a piece of the total cost that they would pay. And we haven't had anyone come through asking for a review at this point. And if we did, it will be a consideration that we will make. But there is an equal amount of preparation, materials, technology investments that would support a maintaining of that cost.
Thanks for that, Maggie.
I would say we have not changed our pricing. We believe that our price point is actually pretty competitive on the classes we offer anyway. We do occasionally offer promotions, and that's more around trying to get minimum numbers of participants in classes and different things. So our promotions and our specials are driven to specific classes and enrollments that we're trying to look for, and whether it's trainer costs or licensing costs or whatever it happens to be. So for the most part, no, our business is a good chunk corporate customers, and so we very rarely get pushback on price. So we have not changed prices.
Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate the insight there. And I think, given all of the considerations that we've kind of brought to light throughout this discussion, the preparation and collecting and implementing feedback and ensuring that, our communications and engagement is all there, we're really not losing value in the quality of our product that's being delivered to our learners. So I think that is some valid point that each of you all bring up here. So we're about at the top of the hour here, and very much appreciate you guys all taking the time again to hop on. Bruce, Maggie, and Anne, especially thanks for taking the time out of your respective mornings and later evenings to hop on and kind of share some insights and learnings with our client base at large. Some next steps here for you guys. We've got always available at arlo.co, support at arlo.co specifically. You're able to reference some help center articles that we've put together to help transition and answer some questions that you all have here. We've also got the opportunity for you guys to start a free, I think we've got some conflicting slides here, but we've got a couple of cool offers available if you guys are still in the thought process around coming on board with Arlo. So over the next couple of months, we're waiving admin and plan fees and just charging for overall implementation and usage being registrations that are captured. Some next steps as far as if you all are part of the Arlo client base, feel free to book some time with me. I've been sending out those emails that have been probably flooding your inbox and annoying some people. So just reply directly to that. There's also an opportunity to book some time directly on my calendar. I'd love to kind of have a bespoke conversation in terms of how do we apply all of these learnings and philosophies to your business and help you transition from face-to-face to a virtual classroom effectively. We also, if you guys are unaware, we're offering for the next couple of months free additional administrators. So as everybody's kind of alluded to, administrators, facilitators, presenters, it's a new experience for just about everybody. So to make things as easy as possible for you guys, Arlo is offering free additional administrators to kind of mitigate the lack of being able to be present in the same office space. Just reach out to us at support@arlo.co if you'd like to take advantage of that. Obviously, the face-to-face component in classroom setting, traditional courses have largely had to be canceled at this point. And again, I think this has been plastered all over our website and a couple of communications, but if it somehow missed you, we are offering and waiving registration cancellation fees for the next couple of months. So if your business has been particularly affected, especially those face-to-face courses and respective registrations have been canceled, we're waiving those fees. So some great resources and articles available on our arlo.co. Just have a quick look at the site, and we'll be able to navigate you from there to the respective articles, case studies, guides, videos. And I think the general consensus here is now is the time to shift to live online. We've seen a bunch of businesses see some fantastic success with this. Like I mentioned previously in the call, we've seen 300, 400, 500% spikes in online activity registrations. So the customers, the learners, the registrants, they're hungry. They do want to continue to take advantage of the services that US training providers are offering. And there's no better time than now to make that shift. So Anne, Maggie, and Bruce, thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day to impart some wisdom to our client base here. And thanks again. We'll send up a couple of follow-up communications in the coming hours, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.